Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Women Atheists UNLOAD. We're going to talk all about dog whistles. So, the podcast, another episode of the podcast is going to start right now.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome again to another Saturday as we talk about things that are relevant to us. And today is all about dog whistles. My name is Cynthia McDonald. I go by she, her pronouns. And I have Miss Bumblebee with me co-hosting, as you can SEE. Hey, how you
What's
doing?
up, girl? Hey, yes. So happy to be co-hosting. This is my first time co-hosting this show, so thank you for having me, Skeptic Haven. I usually co-host with Sunny on Thursday nights. So if you like the science topics and stuff like that, we've been hitting those here a bit lately. But the social topics are always super important, and I'm so glad to be able to join you on this panel. I don't think I'm joining you alone, though, am I?
No, you're not joining me alone, and I'm so glad that it's been a minute, Bree. How have you? Before we even get started, how have you been?
Well, life has its ups and downs. Right now, I'm feeling like I'm moving up, so hopefully it keeps on that trend. So we'll see what the future holds.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Well, we're going to continue to try to keep the conversation on the up, and let's go ahead and bring in our panel. I believe that we have Miss Maya. How you doing, girlfriend?
How's it going?
Oh, so good to see you.
I know, same with you. Gosh, it's been forever. You've been MIA.
I don't know if I've been an MIA. I just been BUSY.
Can relate.
Indeed. I think that we also have Miss Stephanie also running in the background. How you doing, girlfriend?
Absolutely fine. How are you doing?
I am doing well. Thank you for asking. Cool. All right, guys. So we are all here on Skeptic Haven on Women Atheists Unload, and today we are unloading about dog whistles. So why don't we talk first about lay the foundation and build upon that, as I love to do when it comes to some of these discussions. So I think that we should come up or just talk about, what do we mean by dog whistles? So in this particular vein of the conversation, we are talking about it in a political sense, but I think that we wanted to kind of discuss a little bit of maybe what it is and where it came from. So I'm going to go to the almanac of all internets, Wikipedia, and let's go ahead and see if we can get something that we can kind of ground ourselves into. So according to Wikipedia, it says that in politics, a dog whistle is the use of a coded or suggestive language in political messaging to garner support from a particular group without provoking opposition. The concept is named after an ultrasonic dog whistle, which are audible to dogs but not humans. Dog whistles use language that appear normal to the majority, but communicate specific things to an intended audience. They are generally used to convey messages on issues likely to provoke controversy without attracting negative attention. So is that something that we can agree on as far as definition is concerned? And let's just talk about what we just heard.
Yeah, that works perfectly for what I'm saying. It's what they say is it's the quiet part, right? That when someone says you said the quiet part out loud, the dog whistle's the quiet part, right? We all understand what that means socially, I think. And if someone pretends like they don't know what that means, or that they don't know what you mean when you say their dog whistle, that something's a dog whistle, they're just maybe being like not an honest actor at that point, right?
A dishonest interlocutor.
Right.
Yeah, it's deep semiotics. It's a sign that means something to people who know the sign, but is obscure to people that aren't in the know. One of the most recent ones these days was that, right?
Right.
That used to mean okay. It doesn't anymore.
Right.
And that one is an interesting one because it started out as like a joke that they co-opted and said, no, we like it, we're going to keep it.
Which is weird because I still naturally do that with my hand when I'm saying something's all right. I make that gesture because I spent some time backing in trucks as a youth, and that was one of the hand gestures to say this, that where you're at is where you want to put it in park right now.
Well, that's the point. Dog whistles have to be in common usage because if they're only used by the community in which they're in, like the racist community or transphobic community, whatever the case may be, then it's no longer a dog whistle.
Yeah, and it's the perfect dog whistle because okay,
Yeah.
Most people are going to see that and think, "Oh, that's okay." But the smiling, smarmy SOBs that want it to mean something else are saying it to a community that is thinking this means white power. So it's a perfect dog whistle.
Yeah.
Right.
It isn't anymore because it's sort of lost its
kind of ran its course.
Shine.
Yeah.
But still but the concept of it still stands, right? So like even though like we can talk about like how one phrase, action, or what have you is used from one area to another, and that first it was acceptable to say one thing, but now we can't because of like political correctness or what have you. So now we're going to have, but we still want that meaning, where we can actually take phraseology and to imbue continuously oppressiveness within our policies and also our politics and our way of thinking, in order for us to still get the message across that this is what we're still about. So I wanted to give a little bit more context. I believe that we were just having a discussion, I want to say in the virtual green room, about like, where did the term specifically dog whistle come from, and learned that this term is actually was utilized. It was more so like an action that was used during chattel slavery. So this is when if a runaway slave was being hunted specifically from bounty hunters, they would use dog whistles in order to rally their dogs in order to go after the runaway slave to bring him back to the plantation, or if they were too unruly, to maul them to death, which is definitely something. And I knew specifically about, using a dog whistle because of course that this was what they would do to herd the dogs and get them ready to go out on their hunt. Because like we can even see this, like, especially I love watching a lot of period pieces from the BBC, like Downton Abbey and things of that nature. Like when they would go out to shoot, that's what they would use, right? They would use like those dog whistles in order for them to go ahead and corral their dogs in order to go out after their prey. And so it's the same type of inferences that's like here as well. And now it's melded. Well, it's traversed from an actual dog whistle to go after runaway slaves to more of a political meaning to go after like a certain group of people so that they can kind of get on your side. So what did you guys think about that?
So it almost gives it like a double meaning, right? Like because it has the political implications, like we were talking about in the definition that you read, and then you can also mesh that with the racial usage of actual physical dog whistles being used against escaped slaves specifically. There's a lot of symbolism, in the notion of a dog whistle itself right there. That's where it starts from its inception. It is symbolic, and it means something symbolic in its definition every time. I bring us back around to sundown towns and things like that were subtle, that you could put up in public and didn't seem publicly, or that maybe somebody who wasn't from the region wouldn't understand. But
sundown towns were pretty overt. They wanted all the Black people to know that you needed to be out by sundown.
Yeah,
I mean, they had signs, like they're very noticeable.
Pretty egregious. But what I'm talking about is more after, like into the 80s when I was a child. They didn't have those signs up anymore. I mean, I had them in the back of her shed still, all gathering dust back there, but they weren't up anymore. But there were other things that people would do.
Talk about those.
Yeah, to give you the impression. Well, the main one that happens, the town that I grew up in, because in the 50s they knew that was slipping. They knew that it was, at some point this hold when Wallace lost was when it was when, at least up in this part of the country, where that sort of imagery faded out. But what they did in place of that was they started to move the culture towards this. It's not patriotic. It's because it's towards the Confederacy. And my hometown to this day still has a Confederate statue in front of this county courthouse. And that statue has flags with it, and one of the flags is that the fly with it is the Confederate flag, because it's a Confederate soldier. There's Confederate flags engraved in stone, and they encourage that culture. So yeah, they put the N-words, go home, and all that other stuff away, and had to hide that. But there's still things that they can do that they say is part of their culture and heritage, as the argument. And that is where the dog whistle comes in, because it's like, how can you say that's offensive? That's part of my heritage, even though their heritage lasted. There was more time between every Star Wars installment than there was that their heritage lasted. That their Confederate heritage was in place.
Yeah, but cough, cough. My heritage is a dog whistle.
It is
one of the biggest dog whistles in American history is the lost cause myth.
Yeah,
after the defeat of the Confederacy. We never had a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We had what was called Reconstruction, but we never held people really to account.
That's true.
I mean, Nathan Bedford Forrest went on to found the Ku Klux Klan.
We gave them reparations.
So a Confederate general is carrying on the war into and beyond the 1860s, into the 1870s, 1880s, all of this. So that myth of the lost cause, it sort of went dormant for a while, and I think it was the presidential election of in the 1890s when it finally all, like, Reconstruction's done. We're not gonna deal with that anymore.
Right.
And so you're getting the 1880s, 1890s. That's all dying away. And then what do you get when motion pictures first came out? You get Birth of a Nation as one of the very first, most popular films that celebrated the KKK and the lost cause myth.
That's
so
right.
That is a dog whistle, and it's a great big huge dog whistle that even through the history of the we've got to tamp that stuff down because it's too obviously racist. It was revived again with Southern states adopting various models of the battle flag of Northern Virginia, incorporating them into their state flags in the 1950s.
Yeah.
Right.
That emblem was not
about.
part of the state flag of Georgia until the 40s, 50s.
Mm-hmm.
They
remember too that the Lost Cause myth started with the Daughters of the Confederacy,
right,
which originally grouped to, I believe, retrieve bodies from the battlefield. And as they kind of grew in popularity, started pushing the Lost Cause myth into schools to be taught to children who grew up to be, to put this myth into popular culture.
Yeah, it was. When you look at like some of the history books, especially like in the South, I believe I was watching Chelsea Handler. I forgot specifically what the film was called, but it was on Netflix for a while, and where she specifically went to southern states like South Carolina and talked about racism, talked specifically about slavery to some of the residents that live there now, and she was talking to this woman who said, "Oh well." I was taught and I believe that like, slaves were actually happy. They had homes and clothing for free, and they were employed, even though like the definition of employment is like I work. Excuse me, guys. Yeah, I was out in the rain doing volunteer work, and now I'm schwitzing everywhere. But but yeah. She said that like they were employed, and employment means you get paid. Slaves don't get paid. And like, and she also mentioned about growing up with her maidservant or what have you, like her mammy as she called her.
Mm-hmm.
And she was part of the family, and she was happy to be with us. And
Did she get to go home every day?
Yeah, no, she slept there. And
oh wow.
She said that she slept there because her duties were not only keeping house, but it was also like raising children, kind of like
so if the children wake up through the night, God forbid,
their
own
go
parents,
your actual parents, you got to go to
Yeah.
mammy so she can make it all right. So this and a lot of times, like we had, especially when you guys are talking about this Lost Cause myth, we had a revisionist history that was in the books that the Daughters of Confederacy actually pushed, including that narrative that slaves were happy and that the Civil War was fought over states' rights, not necessarily because the states wanted the right to have slavery.
Wasn't that the Civil War? It was the War of Northern Aggression.
Oh, my bad.
They were just fighting for their states' rights.
Right. And slaves. We got to get that cleared up. But so now that we're here, we're talking about like we're really like grounding foundations right now, and we're talking about like the inception of like what we knew of dog whistles are, specifically antebellum South, Civil War, and then Reconstruction. So let's go to like the election of Richard Nixon, and let's talk about a little guy called Lee Atwater. So if we go back to Wiki, and actually this is a pretty good matter of fact. I'm gonna if somebody doesn't mind, I'm gonna put it in our chat, and then if somebody doesn't mind like sharing it in the other chat, this is a pretty good grounding for if people want to kind of know where dog whistles came from. So if we go to the 20th century. So and we were just talking about this, the phrase states' rights, literally referring to powers of individual states, governments in the United States, was described in 2007 by David Greenberg in Slate as code words for institutionalized segregation and racism. States' rights was the banner under which group like the Defenders of State Sovereignty and Individual Liberties argued in 1955, aside to Stephanie, against school desegregation. In 1981, former Republican Party strategist Lee Atwater, when given an anonymous interview discussing former President Richard Nixon's Southern strategy, speculated that terms like states' rights were used for dog whistling. And this is his quote: You start out in 1954 saying inward, inward, inward. By 1968, you can't say inward. That hurts you, backfires. So you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. You're getting so abstract now. You're talking about cutting taxes, and all these things you're talking about are totally economic things. And a byproduct of them is that blacks get hurt worse than whites. And subconsciously, maybe that is part of it. I'm not saying that, but you are saying that. But I'm saying that if it gets that abstract and that coded, that we are doing away with the racial problem one way or the other. You follow me? Because obviously, sitting around saying we want to cut this is more abstract than even the busing thing, and a hell of a lot more abstract than saying inward, inward. Putting that out there.
And that went on after Nixon's disgrace and Jimmy Carter's term. Who comes back but Ronald Reagan?
Right. Right.
Where did Ronald Reagan start his presidential campaign?
In the South.
In Philadelphia, Mississippi.
That's right.
The site of the murder of 4 civil rights workers years before.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a dog whistle.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the people that weren't familiar, by that time it was what, 1980, right?
1981.
1981.
Yeah.
And they're like, what do you mean it was a
1980 election? So by that time, a number of the people, it's like 20 years after the Civil Rights Act had passed, and the peak of that activity had gone by.
Right.
And so people were, who remembers Medgar Evers? Who remembers these people? Who remembers the people that were killed in Philadelphia, Mississippi? The people that needed to be remembered, were the people that were going to vote for Ronald Reagan. Mm-hmm. And that's why he solidified that support by starting his campaign there and talking about welfare queens and talking about welfare Cadillacs and all of the things that Lee Atwater spelled out, with the help, by the way, of Roger Ailes, who was a young man working for Richard Nixon, who taught Richard Nixon how to say things on TV, because Roger Ailes, in his 20s at the time, said the American people are stupid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Keep it simple, keep it sweet, talk in symbols. Use these deep symbols to knock on the people that you need to have on your side. That was a key part of the Southern strategy. Mm-hmm. And when you say the Southern strategy, that's a gloss too, because it was the white Southern strategy. It was the segregationist strategy. Mm-hmm. It was the South shall rise again strategy.
Yeah.
That powered both Nixon and Reagan into power. And it's the same effing thing that we're seeing in our politics in 2023.
Well, let's talk about that effing thing right now. So, like, now that we have laid our foundation, where did this come from? Who perfected it? Et cetera, et cetera. Now we're dealing with our modern day dog whistles and kind of like a pivot of the same group. Like, and this is basically white Christian evangelicals that have really organized themselves, and I think it's important, kind of like if we're talking about modern day dog whistles, to kind of see even where that organization came from. So who wants to tell the story about Jerry Falwell? Anybody? Okay, I'll tell it.
Okay, I was gonna say it's like I know bits and pieces, but
okay, sure. So if we launch back to Nixon, right? and we're having like Lee Atwater saying, okay, well, you can't say the N word anymore, you can't do this anymore. So, and then of course, like, this is not too long after the Civil Rights Act of 1964 has been passed. uh, Jerry Falwell had this university called Liberty University. And at the time, I would say like in the late 60s, early 70s, they were still not allowing Black students to come into the school. So they ended up getting sued by the federal government and had to and really, saying like, listen, you're going to lose your tax exemption for being a university, and also a tied to a faith-based organization, if you keep doing these practices of not allowing Black students to come to your university. So Jerry and his people was like, dang, we can't be racist no more. And government was like, well, yeah, you can, but you ain't gonna get no help from us. So the thing about it was is that they had to pivot their what we're going to basically rally around to continuously have that, as we call, dog whistles going forward. So instead of talking about the Black problem, we're going to talk about abortion, especially since this was not too long after Roe versus Wade was decided.
Like
Okay.
almost immediately after, yeah.
Yeah, because before then, no one was talking about abortion in that place.
Actually, most religious people were okay with it, even evangelicals.
Yeah, because like the Southern Baptist Convention actually wrote a letter to Congress, and also in republished in the papers how they supported Roe v. Wade. Because like back in the day, before Roe v. Wade, like, abortions, of course, this was not a regulated practice. So if anybody got them, there used to be like whole hospital wings devoted just to people with abortions.
Yeah, no, most people did. Almost everybody at that time knew somebody who had died.
Yeah.
Because of a pregnancy-related complication.
Right.
So, yeah, it was hugely in favor. And now, all the people that were alive to tell the tale just forgot.
Right. Yeah. This never happened. What do you mean? So yeah. So this is like then we had a whole like organizing force, especially with Jerry Falwell's people and people who thought like him, in order to really overturn Roe v. Wade, and also to restrict like abortion access. Okay, so we got that out the way. So now let's see how this movement, specifically from the right, the white evangelical right, or like now we call them Christian nationalists, and Cindy Plaza. Shout out to Cindy Plaza. I always use this term now. Well, I don't always use it, but I like it. Crystal fascist. So I like that term a lot. So I do, because it's so appropriate.
It's appropriate.
It's appropriate. Yeah. So okay. So we're talking about this particular time period, and now we're up to today. Roe v. Wade is gone. The Dobbs decision overturned that, and now we have like states by states either like completely getting rid of abortion, or they have like a lot of restrictive properties to it. Matter of fact, Florida, which is, I'm okay with actually annexing and then it fall into the ocean personally, is has already passed a 6-week ban.
Yeah. This past week or the week before, yeah.
Yeah, a 6-week ban on abortion. Before, I think it was like 12 or 15 weeks. 15 weeks. Okay, thank you. Oh, now it's and this is like about maybe 2 weeks after like a person even knows that they're pregnant. Let alone
the point.
Yeah, it's at the point where they find out. So yeah, and we have seen like these sentiments specifically with that group that was like screaming about abortion, which is like family values and protecting children, and have like molded into other areas. So I'm going to throw that out there and shut up and let y'all talk about it.
Wait, what aspect of it?
Well, I mean, just basically how we look at the, like, kind of like what Leah where we're saying, like, you can't say the N word anymore, right? And then Jerry Falwell's university gets dinged saying you can't get federal funding any longer if you are refusing Black students. So we can't like make segregation our number one item to get rid of, right? Even though Marjorie Taylor Greene is talking about we need to bring that back in some shapes, because she was saying that she is okay with succeeding from the union, a congressperson, but that's neither here
In
nor
a
there.
purple state.
Yes, great, great. That part, more of that. So, and now we are seeing like some these dog whistles, same group, actually maneuvering them into other areas, like specifically against the LGBTQ community, specifically trans people. So, and we're still having that fight about trying to ascertain or get back more rights when it comes to bodily autonomy. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think that well, there's a lot in there. I think that there's
where you would start first.
I think that there are dog whistles. There are dog whistles, and then there's redirection. And I think that in both the abortion debate and in gay rights, trans rights discourse, the distraction is we need to protect the children.
Right.
I mean, in the case of abortion, it's the unborn children.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of gay rights, trans rights, it's we need to protect the children from the possibility that, oh my God, they might be gay, or oh no, trans, even worse,
Yeah.
And even that's kind of a switch.
Well, we got
to be to protect our women. And then since the women have been like going into the workforce and getting more independence, now it's been an interesting transition to we need to protect our
particularly I'm glad you said that, because the protect the women is a major focus of the gender crits when it comes to trans people, because it's never about the men.
Yeah.
It's never about it. It is very rarely, shall I say, about the trans men, except insofar as we need to protect our young girls from being infected with the trans virus.
We need to make sure they're fertile so we can breed them with our kids. That's the goal.
It's really a form of, a lot of people don't think that trans men are afflicted or are affected by misogyny, but they are. I mean, you talk to Dr. Ben, talk to Beck, talk to any trans man, and they're gonna say that that is a thing. And if hell, talk to Buck Angel and
Ew, no.
Yeah, or don't. Actually, probably better not to. But so there's that. I'm not sure where the symbolism is there, except insofar as women are depersonalized so that they become the symbol of the thing that you're actually protecting, when you're not actually protecting women or women's sports or women's spaces or anything of the sort. You're basically just going after trans people because you hate them.
Let me tell you where the dog is here.
Let's talk about the dog whistle.
The word is groomer. That is the dog whistle word when it comes to do not specifically trans people. It is specifically trans people, but they use it for queer people across the board. They want us not in teaching roles, for instance, not in any kind of roles where we'll be around children. They think that children simply knowing that we exist is a problem. That if you are in a same-sex marriage and you're a teacher having a picture of your children of your spouse and children on your desk could be considered grooming to these people. That is their dog whistle, and they just blow it until they're red in the face, and all the people who, oh my gosh, got to think about the children, are all about it. They don't use normal stuff. They will take they'll take clips clips of people doing gross stuff at a pride festival or whatever, and say, oh, this is the culture that they're wanting to bring into your classrooms, and just equate everybody with the people that they call groomers, I guess.
Did you hear MTG's definition of groomer with
Oh, please
that
enlighten
was
us.
it? Oh, I forget who she sat with. No, she said that we groomers sexualize children, and when we talk about changing, giving boob jobs to boys and cutting, or cutting their, whatever off, that is the sexualization of children. And this is what we do to trans kids. So that's why we call them groom. That's why I say we. She's saying like that's, these are groomers. Like that's why we call them groomers.
The wild thing about that is it doesn't even happen. You don't. People,
no, it does not. No. Yeah, but they don't. I mean, there's so few trans people. I mean, honestly, I've still never, like once in a coffee shop, a trans that I know of. I'm actually in the same city as ContraPoints. I do know I've never met her. But, I think most people either don't know any trans people or don't realize that they've met a trans person and they can't relate to them. When you see people shifting their views, it's when they come into contact with more people. So, when we got like gay marriage, that came following the huge popularity of a lot of gay people being seen and on TV. You had Roseanne did a couple of gay marriages. She did the first gay kiss. You had the huge popularity of Will and Grace. Sex in the City showcased the LGBT community in a very positive light. And then it's like, oh, these are just people. We should give them rights.
Hold on, excuse me. I just need to preface that the first same-sex kiss was on Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
You are right. I am so sorry. You're right.
Yeah,
It's also the first interracial kiss. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I think of Star Trek as the first interracial kiss. And
it is. The original Star Trek was the first interracial kiss that happened between Nichelle Nichols and William Shatner.
Correct.
Even though that was the awkwardest, most
awkward. So awkward. It could be seen in any southern state.
It still was like awesome. Awkward. Like, who actually kisses somebody? And he dipped her and everything with his eyes open. It was like so weird. And then, but like the first like same-sex kiss was between the character Dax and her former wife when they were trill. Never mind. This is not a Star Trek show.
I'm sorry. I needed to bad Maya.
I just had to preface that for my shout out to all my trekkers in the chat, because I know you there, and a shout out to all the trekkers that are watching this show. I had to acknowledge you all because I too am a trekker.
Well, before we jump back into the conversation, I want to just make a quick thank you to our patrons here at Skeptic Haven. We got Eric Ozols, we have Tara S, we have Rion, we have Deneen Murphy, we have Dan D and Michael Wiseman, Kathy Cotton, Cindy Plaza, Sunny Shell, Aaron Coalson, and Phil Calderone. Thank you, everybody, for all your contribution to make Skeptic Haven happen.
Thank you. We're going to actually even repeat that list towards the end, especially tell you how you too can become a patron and actually support Skeptic Haven and our content. So yeah, so we're going back specifically, like, to Bree's point, like, what's the dog whistle here? And it's groomer, right? So and so like the two I would say like big dog whistles that we hear nowadays, especially from that same group, is groomer, definitely. Like when we're talking, especially when we're talking about queer people and trans people. And then we're also what the newer dog whistle to say that we're going to go ahead and devolve ourselves to not teaching proper history is everything woke and CRT.
Well,
those go right
I mean,
hand
I
in
don't want to
hand.
leave out what is a woman from the trans.
Yes,
Yeah, you don't want to leave that one out.
yeah, you don't want to
wanna
leave that one
out.
out. But it's okay. So I have to say this, and I would love to get you guys' thoughts on it. So, like a lot of times, if we're talking specifically about trans people, and we hear like that dog whistle groomer, and you have like certain leaders in the religious right who would speak on that. Like a lot of times they are speaking, either they're just like making up things on the fly and then taking those points and continuously reiterating them to the point where people actually think this is happening. Like for instance, like when you were discussing Bree about I don't know if it was Bree or Meyer, sometimes I'm so sorry, I'm old, but
we all look the same to you, don't we, Cynthia?
no,
no,
it just means no, you don't. It's just that I'm old and I don't remember shit. So anyway, I remember what you said, but also I don't always remember who said it. When we were talking specifically about, I think, no, it was you, Maya, who was talking about like what Marjorie Taylor Greene said, what a groomer is. No, that was you, Bree.
That was me. Well, Bree started it, and
and then you went
added
on
to the definition from
when you both were talking about what MTG said, because specifically what a groomer is, and it was totally about like the sexualizing of children. And if a child comes to you and say, hey, like say for instance, if they were assigned a boy as their gender at birth, right? And I'm trying to be specific. I'm trying to be very specific with my language, because of course there's a huge difference between gender and sexual and sexuality, right? So if they're
that.
Yeah, I know. I don't think that she knows that at all. Because a lot of times when I'm hearing them talk, they conflate sexuality with gender identification, and they're totally two different things. Like you can have a transgender woman who is heterosexual. You can have a transgender woman who is homosexual. It's and the reason being is because they may be attracted to the same to the same gender, like they're same gender loving people, and that has to do with their sexual preference as far as like who they want to be with in that way. So and a lot of times, like I would try to even have these conversations with people who may not be in the know. I get pushback saying, well, that doesn't make sense. And I was like, it doesn't make sense to you because you don't want to make it sense. Like your cognitive biases are starting to your cognitive dissonance is kicking in. A lot of Dunning-Kruger going on right here. Okay. So I need you to own that. But but regardless of that, like we oftentimes have conflation and wrong meanings attached to certain things to continue to push forward narratives and to like shrivel it down to a dog whistle like groomer or a dog whistle like woke or something like that. So yeah,
right. You can't have a rallying cry with like that goes too in depth on the right, apparently. It can't be like defund the police where there's just like this really long like list of things that we'd like to see, but all they hear is abolish punishment for criminals,
right?
Because it's just really like Stephanie was saying, Roger Ailes was saying, it's like most Americans just they like their thoughts being told to them. They don't want to think too much. If I'm thinking too much, like it's interrupting my cat videos. And I'm not trying to say that most Americans are stupid, but I mean, when we're talking about the right and the type of people that hear something and won't look it up. And I'll use myself as an example, which I don't like to usually because, everybody's different. But like when I heard defund the police, the first thing I thought was, that's weird. I know Black people don't want police out of the communities. What's going on? It was an insanely simple Google search for me to figure out. It's like, oh yeah, duh, defund doesn't mean abolished. Right. And the same people who are saying defund the police are also saying abolish ICE. So we can, I mean, just those two very simple things right there could tell you, okay, they mean something more. But, you know, despite this really high techie thing that for a lot of people is a lot higher powered than their actual computer, won't open up a Google search to figure out what the narrative is. It's just us versus them. And, you know, it's those very simple talking points. And so, yeah, when you're talking about like dog whistles and narratives, especially, it has to be, you know, that click, 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 that, you know, the three, build back better, build that wall, you know, they're speaking on very simplistic terms, also because they are defunding education and, you know.
In libraries. In libraries in Missouri, they are the state is at war with librarians. They're trying to defund libraries because the librarians are suing the state for taking away queer books.
Yep. Yeah. Because of the book bans.
And CRT.
And CRT, yeah. See, I mean, like I've seen like, you know, books that I had to read in high school on that list.
Oh yeah.
Like
probably almost all of them.
Yeah, a lot of them are like, you know, I believe Maya Angelou's I Knew Why the Paper and Strings was on a book ban list. A lot of Toni Morrison's books were on the book ban list. The Bluest Eye, Beloved Was,
I love that
Hard
book,
Baby,
yeah.
you know. And you know, the thing about it is, this is a side note, I'm not a huge fan of Toni Morrison's writing. The only reason why is because Girlfriend likes to talk in a lot of symbols. And I need you to get to the point. I don't want to do too much imaginary imaginations in order to actually for you to get to what you're trying to say. But that's just my personal.
Yeah, I mean that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my personal gripe. But you know, but still, there was a lot of historical and cultural reference to like her writing.
Mm-hmm.
I believe even some of them even banned The Color Purple. Some bands are on their Hurston's books.
They even banned stuff with class messages like The Outsiders. That book is about a class difference, and you can't read that book in Missouri now.
Wow. What about Animal Farm?
I think an important point here is the stark difference between something like taking down a symbol of oppression, like Confederate statues.
Yeah.
What do you get? You get a Nazi rally of a bunch of people carrying torches saying, you are erasing our history.
Right. You will not replace
by taking down a statue.
Right.
Now, who's erasing history more? The people taking down the representation of the history in the form of a statue, or the people burning the history books so that you can't read about the history? You can't appreciate the actual records of what happened, what went on.
Even the history that we got though has been so whitewashed.
When the focus is only on the symbols, it gives the people who use those symbols permission to go back and say, no, you're the one that's trying to erase history. Why are you offended when I come back and try to preserve my history? So it's in so many instances when people are using these symbols, you'll say, hey, what's up with that thing? Are you aware of the fact that thing has certain connotations within certain communities that have been used forever and ever and ever to denigrate their humanity and their existence? Why are you using it as your, I don't know, avatar somewhere? Why are you doing that? What do you get back? It's just an animal.
Yeah.
Why are you offended that I'm using my favorite pet? You're the racist. And you get this immediate pushback of you're not entitled, even if you're part of the community that's effective, you are not entitled to question my use of a highly offensive piece of visual representational artwork.
Yeah.
If it's
Yeah,
artwork, you're not entitled to be offended by my use of that symbol. And the problem with that is that is asking you to give them permission to abuse you constantly, and while at the same time granting that permission to anybody who chooses to do so.
No, the
And they'll
demanding
come
it.
back at you. I mean, they'll come back at you and say, well, you know, you're tough. You can take it. Sticks and stones don't break your bones. You know, sticks and stones might break your bones, but I'm just calling you a name, and it shouldn't hurt you because I'm offended at you taking offense.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cute jujitsu that is pernicious, and it sucks.
Well, you know, when you even talking about that, let me just make this point, and then Maya, I wanted you to talk about history, and then Bree, I wanted you to come in. But what you're basically talking about, Stephanie, is that it's a whole thing, because like you would hear from this same group about freedom of speech, right? So, you know, I can say these things, I can do these things, I can show these symbols, and reason because I have a right to do so, because I have a right to speak my mind. I have a right to put whatever it is that I want to say or do out in the atmosphere for you to see, right? But the issue specifically is the as we go back to what we were discussing previously, is about the accountability that comes with it. Right. So like you can say anything, but there are going to be consequences to what you say. You can use a symbol that may be considered extremely offensive to a marginalized group, but you can do it, and no one is going to knock on your door and come and arrest you for it. But
right.
there are
No
other
secret police.
Right, there's no secret police, there's no KGB that's coming after you, right? But at the same time, if you are very much so vocal with your use of these particular symbols, or even dog whistles, or anything of that like, there is a consequence, and a lot of times there's going to be a consequence from a group of people who would say that this is an offensive term, and the reason why it's offensive is not because I'm a snowflake. It's offensive because there is a pernicious history behind it that has caused that has like perpetuated oppression in some shape, way, or form.
In violence,
and you know damn well it is, and yet you do it anyway, and then you're PO'd because somebody's calling you out on it. I mean, who's the snowflake here? For
exactly.
Now, you know, my point in discussions with people that, you know, I've had a few recently with these guys. I don't care if you keep the stupid thing. That's fine. That's your choice. But don't expect that you're not going to, you know, people aren't going to think you're a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
You know, doing that,
you're going to get caught out on it.
You're not going to get off the hook.
Right.
You want to be a jerk? Fine, be a jerk. That's cool.
So go ahead. What were you going to say, Maya, about whitewash history and then Bree?
Yeah, I just wanted to, like, Stephanie had 2 points that I wanted to click on. It was like, one, you have a lot of people who are, again, just hearing the rhetoric. We have to understand that these people aren't coming up with this of their own accord. They're being fed a narrative from people who do know history. I didn't know what blood and soil was until, you know, the murder of Heather Heyer, you know, and I was just like, what are they talking about? And then it's interesting how many things are being done in today, like since Trump took office, that are coming like straight out of the Third Reich. And it's not lost on me how many things that came out of the Third Reich that they got out of America. That aside, there is a really pervasive, like, racism bad narrative that white people seem to feel pretty harshly. And I am really concerned about the whitewashing of our history books, where, you know, they're being told to do these things that are just straight out of like the Nazi propaganda handbook. And they don't know. They genuinely don't know, because like this isn't something that we're teaching our kids, unless you happen to be a German school age child, or I don't know, you're a school age child in Germany. Like that's the only time that like maybe you would know. But the other thing that Stephanie touched on is, and I'd like to mention, because I don't want to let this whole thing go without mentioning white privilege. Part of an aspect of white privilege is being able to be completely oblivious to things that go on with other cultures and have that not affect you at all. No other race in America gets to be oblivious to the plight of the white man specifically. And being Black and a woman, like we have to know what's going on with the white women, because we have to be we're going to be affected by that. We have to know what's going on with the Black man, because we're going to be affected by that.
Right.
Nobody but us is coming to our own defense. And there's been a decades-long governmental campaign to separate the Black family, to damage us. The Black women have been the brunt of it. We've been told that we are the cause of it. Yep. That and all the welfare we all get. It's like, Cynthia, how do you have time to do the stream with all the welfare you're getting? Like,
right.
Probably a check in the mail right now.
Oh, it is? Hold on.
It's waiting around for welfare checks. That's all we do. You know, that man dash, because, you know, we're, you know, despite being welfare queens, we're also such independent women that, you know, all we do is like tell our men that and drive them away. I mean, it's comical.
Yeah.
Like the narrative that is being fed to the American public. And again, when I understand that there are Americans that have never seen another person of color, and so they don't know. I can't forgive in 2023 the inability to at least do a simple Google search before you decide that, you know, this thing you're being told is what is actually happening. Right. But again, tying this back to white privilege, everything is centered around the white male, and they get incredibly hurt. And what's the term? The white
like do a Google search, Micah.
I know, right? My white fragility. The white fragility comes out.
Very popular book, by the way.
The white fragility comes out whenever they're not the focus. So when we're talking about anything else, it's like, well, all right, today we're going to do breast cancer awareness. Well, prostate cancer is a big thing. Like, this is so not about you. And then, like, you know, it's like what Stephanie was saying. It's just like, well, you know, you're not allowed to have feelings if your feelings hurt my feelings. And I think this is something that we have to be able to have open discussions about, because for the other side, whoever they may be, you know, whether it's Black, Latino, even natives, you know, we want to get upset because white men have a tendency, and again, not putting white men on blast, love you all, hashtag not all white men, but you do have a tendency to turn everything, well, what about me? And again, nobody's calling you in particular a bad person. We're saying this is our experience. And part of allyship is understanding that other people have experiences that aren't you, and you don't have to take it personally, even if you for your whole life have been doing the thing. And that's totally fine. That is totally fine. If you your whole life have been doing the thing, if you feel bad, just say, oh my God, I'm doing that. I need to stop. You know, tell me more about this. What do I need to be cognizant of? What's your experience? How do I walk in a way that shows allyship? You know, if, you know, and just speaking to myself as an ally for the transgender community, there's just a lot of stuff that I'm still learning. And, you know, I shut up. I mean, well, I ask questions and then I shut up. And, you know, I try to be mindful. And when I slip, and I'm going to slip, I apologize and I try to do better moving forward. Making mistakes doesn't make you a bad person. Not caring that what you're doing is hurting other people, and in a lot of cases, killing other people, is what would make you the bad person. IMO. And I'm sorry. I'll shut up and let Bree talk.
No, you're fine. I was going to mention, because Cynthia had asked earlier. Yes, Orwell is banned on the banned list. Nothing more ironic than the people who have been calling this 1984 are banning 1984, so we can't learn about 1984 and how they're really the 1984. But I don't want to say that based on the town I grew up in, I want to say how ironic it also is that they're banning Mark Twain. Mark Twain books, because he's like their state author or whatever. So the fact that they would turn their backs on Twain is repugnant.
No, it's
because he was too socially progressive. If somebody who lived in the wrote in the 1880s is too freaking socially progressive for you,
no, it might hurt the feelings of their precious white babies.
Yeah. You know, I want to go back to that whole notion of like white privilege and even like how it can be something that kind of affects even other people who may be considered a person of color or even a minority group. So there's a person that is in the chat that's really just like wilding out right now. I'm not going to call you out because I don't want to give you the shine that you are looking for. But what I'm seeing specifically is even how minority groups can also perpetuate white supremacy. And a lot of times that can happen is because we may give into or even prop up systems and institutions of white supremacy, even by buying into some of the dog whistles that we are hearing from certain aspects of society. For instance, I got an example. There was some months ago, last year, I was taking an Uber to my workplace at the time, and we were talking about politics. I don't know exactly how we got into that conversation, but you know, usually I'm willing to talk to the Uber drivers because it keeps them awake, especially since I was an Uber driver. I would appreciate if people would talk to me. So we were talking, it was this younger Black man who was telling me how he likes to listen to people like Candace Owens. And I was like, and I really didn't go like, ew, she's horrible. Why would you do that? No, I really wanted to know why. And the thing about it is that he told me specifically is that, you know, she brings up certain issues and things, even though I may not agree with her on everything, that matter to me too. Specifically, and I think that Maya, you can possibly relate to this as well, is that you have a large portion of Black folk that have and subscribe to conservative ideals, and a lot of it I would conjecture is because Black people are, and specifically in the United States, happen to be mostly Christian. Mm-hmm. And so when you come to having like that, you know, ideology of Christianity as far as like your makeup or your identity, there's going to be like certain things that maybe as a Christian I should believe this, or as a Christian I should garner to, you know, I should hold on to that, right? So even though like a lot of people say, well, you know, most Black people, especially Black, you know, Black Protestants, Black evangelicals may be considered left. I'm like, no, not on everything. Because like some really shitty talking points I've heard about trans people comes from, you know, Black talking heads. Oh yeah. All
yeah. No, the Black community is highly transphobic.
Oh yeah.
I don't know about the Hispanic community, but I'd be really surprised if it was higher than ours.
Well, the Latina community is is very Christian too here in the United States, but they're not as Christian as Black people. I mean, like,
No, I
Black
mean
folks,
transphobic.
yeah. I mean, but that idea of comes from that community as well. They have that whole notion of mejora raza, which is bettering the race, and machismo, which is like, you know, you have to have like certain like aspects in order for you to be considered like a macho alpha male.
More conservative as far as like traditional family. Say traditional. The nuclear family is not a traditional family, but they tend to ascribe to that more. But you'll see that more with highly religious crowd.
Yeah, and especially, you know, so going back to that, like, you know, how we are as and this is not, and it's not just like, you know, white people or, you know, hashtag not all white men, but, you know, a lot of us have a tendency, we don't even know that we're doing it. It's like, you know, we're propping up institutions of white supremacy, and white supremacy is not always about kicking down Black people, even though like that's kind of how it started. But anybody that is not necessarily plugged into this hierarchy, because it's not a flat organization at all, it is a hierarchy, they are going, and it doesn't necessarily subscribe to the notions or
okay, it wasn't just me.
Yeah, to the notions of racism, I think is where she was going with that. I was actually catching up on the chat because we had some dog whistles out there.
Of course we did.
Actually, and we had some too. What do they call, what's the word I'm looking for? Pro quo, where they say that not me but you, or reverse racism, as the case may be. Sorry, and that was very distracting.
Racism is racism. Racism is going to look different in group than out group. Candace Owens is definitely in group racism. Which is, and I don't know. I'm really interested when I hear about people that follow people like her and Jesse Lee Peterson. I mean, Black people, because she's not talking to us, and I find it. I mean, even as a progressive, I would think like that's very clear. I wasn't surprised that Andrew Tate was getting a lot of traction with the young Black men, but Candace Owens, I don't even understand how men would. I don't know any women who follow her, and I don't know.
Candace Owens. Candace Owens is just to help make old white people feel right,
better. Exactly. So I'm like, you're Black. What are you doing watching her?
Much like Buck Angel is there for, or Blair White is there to make cis people feel better about themselves.
How many
they're not for us. We don't.
Right. No, but how many trans people do you know that are like following Blair White and like, yeah, this makes sense to me. You know, I mean,
there are some. I mean, it's not. You know, it goes against the narrative that there is such a thing as transgenderism, as if it's something that one subscribes to, rather than a transgender person who is somebody who is someone.
Atheist Junior gets it.
It's why that phrasing is so frequently used by people on the right, because they want to make it abstract. They want to make it into an ideology, not into a personal matter that is none of their fucking business. You know, it's the same kind of level of abstraction as talking about inner city problems or this kind of bullshit that is basically it's a dehumanizing tactic that leaves people in the cold.
Gang activity, urban gang activity,
law and order. And I'm sorry, I just
a law and order candidate. That just means that he's gonna keep his boot on the Black neighborhood. Don't worry, we'll keep better your white neighborhoods.
Yeah, we'll keep them together for you. You guys, listen. Like, I don't know, the white supremacist overlord came and took me away when I was in their backyard, so that's the reason why I got taken away from y'all. But I'm back, yo.
We just assumed you got raptured.
rapture to hell. That's what that's in my head. With gasoline draws, yo. But going back to, what I was talking about before is like how we can also be perpetuants of white supremacy and the hierarchy of white supremacy of itself. Um, we have to, check our biases because everybody has them,
Yeah.
and we also have, because like I saw the same persons was saying what's the solution? You guys are yammering on YouTube and whatnot, so what's the solution to this? And
what's the solution to dog whistles?
Yeah.
Okay, Nazis can stop using them.
Like, don't dog whistle anymore.
Like, we're not the ones dog whistling. We're the ones saying we want to work with you to make a better world. We're the ones saying we want, universal health care and higher wages, and we want everybody to have, like, we want equity, we want fairness in wages between Black people and white people and men and women, and we want equity, like, for everybody.
We want
the ones.
Society of well-being, and part of that is to, when I was talking about checking your biases, you also have to be not afraid to be woke. And when I say woke, because I called him the other day the dipshit from Florida, would say that Florida is where woke comes to die. And when you're saying that awareness of white supremacy and how it has been such a boot on the necks of people, including white people, is where this notion comes to die. Because like when you are refusing to teach adequate and proper history in schools, when you are refusing even to teach critical thinking, which would cause somebody, Maya, to do a quick Google search to figure out what the heck is defund the police really mean. When people are coming to you specifically about issues that they're dealing with because of this particular institution of white supremacy and needing it to be fixed in certain aspects, and you are going la 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 la, that's a problem. That's the problem.
I think it's really telling when people don't stop to examine their privilege. I mean, I examine mine. It's like I'm white. I've had a middle class upbringing, white middle class suburban upbringing for the most part. I did have the advantage of going to a mostly Black church in my youth, so I wasn't isolated in the white world in the same way that a lot of people are. So I have a certain degree of awareness, and among the things that I was aware of was that privilege, even as a child. It's like, how come my friend David is being treated differently than I am? Why is that happening? You can see it. And I think it's really funny that people become disturbed by just simply hearing the term white privilege or male privilege, or any of these people are discomfited by the notion that, hey, they might actually have a systemic leg up on other people by virtue of circumstances of birth.
That's right.
And it's really, it puzzles me some, because I think that there's no reason to feel yourself a lesser person by recognizing that, yeah, I've been lucky.
Yeah. And Dan, I did run to the mailbox real quick. Unfortunately, it wasn't there. Darn! Yeah. Waiting on that, man. Anyway, but yeah, I think that like there's going to be certain things that all of us can say that there's a privilege that we may have because of this thing, but there's going to be disadvantages as well because we're this thing. So like I specifically would say that my privilege is that I'm a cisgender person. So I can and I identify with the gender that I was assigned at birth. So having certain issues that or certain like dog whistles or what have you that would affect a trans person would not necessarily affect me. So that's my privilege. Now, my disprivilege, or not privileged, would be being, like, as Maya talked about, is a Black woman in America. We don't have the luxury of being not aware. If I would, you guys listen, a lot of people would ask me, because especially like when I first joined the nonprofits, they say, my goodness, it seems like that you're passionate about everything you talk about. And I said, well, because like everything that's out there affects me in some kind of way, shape, way, or form. Because either it affects me directly or affects people who are within my purview. So, at the time, I was a social worker working specifically with transgender people living with HIV. So that so a lot of oftentimes bills that were turned into law in different states, especially like, I had people who would move away to some of these states and realize, oh, I can't get gender affirming care because I'm trans. I can't get this, I can't get that. I got to come back to Illinois, and they rewrite back with me again. That happened a few times, so I have to be aware of these things, and it would cause me to say, because of the work that I did and the population of people that I was working with, I have to speak out against this, because it's now affecting the health and welfare of my clients that I care so deeply about, and a lot of those clients also happen to be not only transgender people, but they were Black. A lot of my were Black transgender women, and which I became painfully aware of the statistics of murder against Black transgender women specifically. And
that they are unfortunately suffering on the bottom rung of the privilege hierarchy.
Yeah.
I can't think of any other demographic, the Black trans women to suffer and to suffer violence against them.
Right.
Nobody has like an average, like, are most likely to die by 30.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you talk about like inner city Black men, I mean, it's still higher than 30.
Yeah,
like,
it is.
Insane.
It is, so this is, and this is the reason why, like, I would say, like, we are painfully aware of, like, other ourselves and other groups that are around us, because like I said, it affects us in some shape, way, or form. I don't have the luxury just to walk around with rose colored glasses. God, sometimes I wish I could, but I just can't. I mean, because like I'm raising a little kid who happens to be a Black boy who's going to grow up to be a Black man, maybe. So if I raised, well, like, I was told by a previous generation, the whole Fred Rogers thing was, well, that boy is going to end up to be a man. I'm like, maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
That seems to be the plan right now, but we'll see what happens.
Right, we'll see what happens. It's completely up to.
Don't let him knock on the wrong door.
I don't know. Okay, sure.
Kansas City, Missouri again. Missouri strikes again.
Yeah, exactly. Don't knock on the wrong door. Don't and definitely don't go to Cup Foods in Minnesota and pretend and pay for anything with a $20 bill. It could be your life. So
don't reach for your iPhone.
Yeah, don't reach for it. Right. Definitely don't have Skittles and an iced tea in your pocket.
Oh, God forbid.
Yeah, don't do that.
That's a death sentence right there. Skittles and iced tea in your pocket.
It totally is. Or a toy gun and playing in the park. Don't do that.
Just don't play in the park.
We've known about that for a few years, right?
Yeah, but just don't play in the park. Just
you can have a real gun though, it's not a toy gun. Well, if you're white, you can have a real gun.
Yeah, it was a toy gun pointed at the ground, in an open carry state. However, was it Roof? No, not well. Roof was one of them, but who's the one guy in Wisconsin that was actually shooting people? And
Are you talking about the dude that's
Kyle
the
Rittenhouse.
Rittenhouse? Yeah.
Kyle
Yeah,
Rittenhouse, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, actually, both of them are perfect because it's like white guy actually shooting people in public, and it's just like, oh, hey, let's take you by Burger King on your way, you know.
Yeah, because you're hungry, right? We got to feed you.
Right. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. So, or and don't don't go shopping in to the grocery store for food on a Saturday in Buffalo. Don't do that. That's your life.
yeah.
Don't go to school. That's your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, don't go to school. Yeah.
Don't go to
Right,
school.
right.
Don't go anywhere.
Don't right. Just stay in your house and just don't go anywhere.
I
And
cannot read to children, so I'm
mhm.
not allowed to read to children anymore.
Yeah, you can't read to children, Bree. Don't
mm-mm.
don't even think about it because
Yeah, I mean,
obviously you're a groomer.
because like
What's
you're
that?
you're okay in the state you're in, but like
Yeah.
you're right on the border there. So
Yeah,
if
I
you
can
make
go
a
across
left
the
turn,
bridge.
yeah, she goes across the bridge, she's illegal. Like
Yeah.
almost everything she
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, that's insane. So Bree, definitely don't go to Tennessee. Period.
Yeah.
You neither, Stephanie. You cannot go to Tennessee. I mean, well, shit, I shouldn't go either. Neither should you, Maya. Even though I got family
I will
there.
not.
Yeah,
Illinois is
I
becoming
have
an
never
island.
ever wanted to step foot in Tennessee.
like,
And
no, no,
it's been
yeah.
interesting, like dating white guys, and they're like, well, what if we moved? And I'm like, well, okay, you're dating a black woman now, so we can't move just anywhere.
Right.
Like you've if you're moving with me, you've placed restrictions on yourself because I can't go just anywhere and get a job today.
Right. No,
You know.
you can't. So like all of us are like really painfully aware of like all the different, issues that would follow us because of our identity and the groups that we belong to. But like the main group, hashtag not all white men, are able to put on those roles, and sometimes white women are able to put on those rose colored glasses and say that like I was having a back and forth with a pretty well known Christian apologist about healthcare outcomes specifically for Black people. And when I would talk about some of the social determinants of health that affect Black people, and they're in the adverse, I get the whole comparison to, well, I was raised in the suburbs and I chose to live where I live. And I said, yeah, you could do that because you're a cisgender white woman and you had adjacent to people who had funds and resources and things of that nature, so you were able to go to a good school. And I bet you don't have a student debt now, don't do you? No? Okay, cool. I do. And it wasn't, and a lot of times it's not necessarily because I didn't want to educate myself, or other people who happen to be of my group don't necessarily it's not that we don't want to educate ourselves. It's just that we have to go this particular route and carry these particular high debts. And could you imagine, okay, yeah, I have a degree, but I'm also carrying 6 figures of student debt behind me in order for me to start off on my life as a professional. So these are different. And then like we also have to consider, well, there's a difference between your area and my area, where I want to live. Like, if it's mostly predominantly African American neighborhood, you may not necessarily have as many clinics. Or like if the clinics that you would have are like mostly kidney dialysis areas, you may not necessarily have as many grocery stores. You may have any grocery stores.
The ones you have may be poorly managed. Yeah.
Right. Or your grocery store is the liquor store or the gas station. I mean, like, matter of fact, like specifically talking about what happened in Buffalo last year, that was a grocery store that community fought for because there were no grocery stores in that area. And the guy specifically researched that and made it his target in order for him to shoot up people. So these are all the different things that we're weighted on, that we have to kind of live through, right? And so like now we have to be also painfully aware of the dog whistles that people would use, because those dog whistles affect not only how you're treated, but they affect what laws are affecting you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead.
You said don't go to Tennessee. don't go here, don't go there. I'm going to go wherever the hell I please. I will say though that when North Carolina passed the stupid bathroom bill in 2018, I had a regatta I was going to in Florida. I had to drive. I was driving the boat down. I brought my birth certificate with me in case any asshole wanted to make a big deal out of it. I mean, my license is fine and all that other stuff. I didn't have my passport with me, but I did bring my birth certificate. So listen, fuck you. I have to.
But it's crazy that you even have to do that. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of, it reminds me of like during slavery, if you were a free Black person, you had to carry your freedom papers.
Yeah.
So that, you wouldn't just get picked up and just so. And sometimes that didn't even.
And I was gonna say that wasn't even enough. That was a bill because those things you burn.
I read this book about this woman who actually had freedom papers, and the bounty hunters that kept on coming to her township because a lot of ex-slaves lived there, went into her home and purposely stole them and shredded them, so that they can go ahead and sell her into slavery, even though she was very much so free, but this is stuff that happened, you know what I'm saying? And it's kind of, and it's, was
they were
really
desperate though. Yeah.
But it's like really baffling in my mind, guys. I just got to say this, and I really would like for you to chime in. And then I wanted to read some of the super chat and also some of the star questions that we have. It baffles my mind that we're like still here in 2023. And we're still talking about things that, are affecting us now that we're like in the 1950s and the 1920s. And
it's always been a part of our country, even before our country was a country.
Sure. Yeah.
One quick note on that. It's 2023.
Mm-hmm.
In 1933, on May 10th, the Nazis went into the Institute for Sexual Research in Berlin, took all of the books in the library out into the street and burned them. It was the first book burning. The Institute for Sexual Research was a repository for decades at that point in time of research by this guy Magnus Hirschfeld, who made it his specialty to study homosexual, transsexual people, sexual, divergence in the sexual realm.
Mm-hmm.
Gender non-conforming people.
Decades of research was lost there. And this is 90 years ago. This was 90 years ago, coming up on the 10th of May. And when I see what's happening in Florida, when I see the focus on particularly LGBTQ literature, it's an echo of what happened then. And that terrifies me.
I just
particularly like to in conjunction with the laws that are being passed that directly affect people's health and lives. It's terrifying. The other point I want to make is I'm 69 years old. That was only 21 years before I was born. It's almost within my living memory.
Oh, I was just about to say that's the year my father was born. Okay, Bree.
I just wanted to mention, I see someone in the chat mentioned Hindu phobia, and that is something that's really a problem right now in the Midwest here, because we are starting to get people moving in. They are entrepreneurs wanting to start businesses here. They are investing in like the little town I told you about, the little ex-sun downtown in Palmyra with the Confederate statue in the courthouse. Back in about 2006, this Indian person moved into town and bought the little hotel on the highway there, and people were, and he wasn't messing around, and people had to just get out of his way when he wanted with what he wanted to do with it, and it really shook the little town up. So it's very much alive, very much a problem hitting the Midwest right now. We're also seeing this with some Hispanic culture that's moved into the area as well. Like beyond eating at a Mexican restaurant, most people around here have never really had any interaction with Hispanic people, so it's kind of awkward.
They're having issues with the Mexican restaurant.
No, the Mexican restaurant's the only place where they expect to find Spanish people.
Okay, yeah. Okay. I'm
I'm
about to say, wait,
surprised.
what? Really?
Yeah.
No, so like they did they get tired of Islamophobia, or did they have too much time on their hands after they finished with?
Well, I don't even know if they know the difference between Hindu and Islam. These
I don't
people
think
around
they
here,
No.
it's just
Well,
not
I actually
Christian.
talked
That's all
to
that matters
I talked to a
them.
guy. I talked to a guy from Indian, and he would just say, "I'm black," and we were like, "What are you talking about?" He said, there are no, like, you guys talk about different cultures and colors, and there's white and there's black. That's it. Like, and just talking about like the treatment that he's seen, from himself and versus other people of color versus treatment that he's seen from the same people with white people, and it's
so like
ubiquitous.
it's kind of interesting. I learned a little bit more about Gandhi, not necessarily always being about hunger strikes, but also like with his own racist viewpoints. And it was even like I read a story specifically about him petitioning to be considered white when he was in South Africa, because he was made to sit in the cars with black people, and separated from the white people who happened to be in that area, because at that particular time apartheid was a thing. And the thing about it is that he carried these sentiments over from his country, because that's and the crazy thing about them is like that colorism specifically is mostly denoted to their class system, which is denoted to their religious system. And it's so funny, like, especially when you're talking about like a lot of these things are ubiquitous, like how a lot of this things that are really against helping societies grow and really work together are torn apart by these notions that are connected with in-group xenophobia, Islamophobia, Hinduphobia, racism, sexism, misogyny, patriarchy, you name it, you got it. But a lot of this is tied into worldviews that come from religious belief. It's and even though I am of the person that I'm really happy that we are seeing more of a falling away from people who are at least starting to question. You're getting more agnostic people or non-religious people. There you see a big falling away specifically from the church, but the backlash that we're getting, especially with these dog whistles against Black people, against trans people, against queer people, against immigrants, against any person who does not fit in the role of cis white, goes back to this whole notion of, well, cis white people are the ones who God has deemed to be the leaders of everything, and you must follow us, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, I said a mouthful there, but but it's just really, I don't want to say it's odd, because it's not, but it's continuously a narrative that we keep coming back to. Am I the only one over here too? I see Skeptic Haven going grr in the background. I agree. Skeptic Haven, go ahead and put yourself on the big screen. We want to see grr on the big screen. Producers, go ahead and put grr. Anytime now. Yes. Yes. I agree. What do you guys say about that? And then I want to get to the some of the comments.
There's a lot to unpack there, actually, Cindy.
I know. I put yeah. Every time you go on a stream with me, just you're gonna get a lot. I'm just like, answer to all of this.
All of this.
Now.
Well, I mean, I'll just, I was first appalled that, I would like to think that if I was a head holy guy of anything, that I would advocate for, the poor, rather than just saying, I don't like being treated like one of them. I would like to be put in with the rich class. I think that.
Well, religion makes for excellent dog whistles, because it's not me, it's my holy book. Yeah. I don't think the gay people are evil. God does.
Right.
But I mean, if you're going to be the head of that, like if you're God, I mean, I know he's not like the Pope where he's like God's spokesman, but I mean, kind of is, So I'm like, all right, I don't want to be with them. I just want to be with the white people. Like I don't know how you call yourself a religious leader and holding those principles, but fuck me, whatever. And the other thing is, we've seen, it's really interesting when you look at the history of the world, you do see Africans developing side by side with, all the other nations. And then as soon as we start getting imperialism, we start to see the subjugation of non-white nations, countries, and just almost immediately follows, the white is right, the lighter the skin, the closer to God. We really do see this in every culture that's been colonized. And so, I mean, I'm not surprised, but it's really disheartening. And even with the natives, when we look at like the history of just the Americas, I mean, it's just a slaughter, bloodbath that makes the Holocaust look like a walk in the park. Mm-hmm. And for the ones that were left over, they try to assimilate and, like blend out. And, they did that first with the, I think Canada's gotten a lot of backlash lately about the schools and more specifically all the bones found beneath the schools, which isn't funny. But if I don't laugh, I'll like scream until I'm hoarse.
Mm-hmm. Horrid.
But, the United States has a lot of those too. And
mission schools.
And right now, I think there's something on the books where they're trying not to have social workers go in and just strip all the kids off the reservations. And actually the Supreme Court is supposed to be hearing that this coming year, to see if we can start to, assimilate and, I mean, pretty much just start another genocide. And when you look on the books at like, well, why are they taking them out of houses? It's just like, well, too many people in a household when like for their entire history, like they've had multi-generational families, which actually is a traditional family. When you look over most of the history of the world, or it'll be child abuse, but they're not by any known standards. Where we have like natives being taken out of the home 4 times. Right now, it's only 4 times as often as white children are taken out of homes. But before we actually got the law in the book, and I'm really trying to remember the acronym, but it was 1 in every 4 native child had been taken out of the home. And, because the standard is whiteness. If you are not adhering to, okay, this is what the white people are doing. If you're not doing that, it's wrong. And we will break your family up.
Yeah.
And we've got to get a different narrative where what I do and what I'm used to isn't the gold standard. Other people are allowed to live their lives in a way that doesn't harm other people. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't tolerate this, not from our group or any other.
Yeah, even like you were mentioning about like natives, and especially with assimilation. Let's look at the 5 civilized tribes. First, like that 5 civilized tribe was specifically from white supremacy. And part of the assimilation process is like, okay, well, one thing you can do is like be like us. You can own slaves. You can catch them too, and we can pay you. You can you can come in that.
That was one of the first things they did.
Yeah,
actually, to separate
well, I want
us.
to give the Iroquois nations some props. So they did give us some foundations to our current level of democracy with a representative council. So yeah.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
thank you.
The Confederation were studied by the people that wrote the Constitution. So
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there's some history there. There was some respect
But
there.
they didn't.
There's also the you know,
That
not
was
to diminish the actual genocide carried out, but the lack of immunity from European diseases did a number
Right.
on the native tribes to the extent that the land was significantly depopulated by disease too.
Yeah,
Uh,
even just think about like the Trail of Tears in of itself, like taking like relocating like again the five civilized tribes away from those lands that was in the south and like and pushing them over towards the west on that lands that are completely different from where they were, you know, and
Yeah, Oklahoma.
yeah,
I
exactly.
think it bears pointing out at this point in the context of this discussion that
Mhm.
Florida wants to take children away from their parents if those parents are uh, are letting their children receive gender
Gender
affirming
affirming
care
care. Yep, they
as
sure are.
Considered child
children,
abuse.
Yeah.
Same
and
with
if the
Texas.
parents themselves are trans, they will
Yeah.
take your children away. That is an element, according to the United Nations Human Rights Commission, of
Mm-hmm.
genocide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It,
No, they're
So
doing the same in
so it's
Texas.
not
Texas
we
lost
are
half of its
there.
social
We are
workers.
definitely there at step 7
mm-hmm.
of
Yeah.
of genocide with regard
Listen,
to the trans with regard to the trans community.
let me tell
Now,
you something.
as to Gandhi, well, yeah, I mean, he certainly was problematic. A lot of leaders are problematic,
Mhm.
and no excusing that. But he did a lot to uh, try to break down the caste system, at least as
Mhm.
regards the untouchables. Uh,
Well, one of the
in
things that I was
in the
mentioning
foundation
specific,
of the Indian state. So, you know,
sure.
it's like any
Well,
any
but one of the
leader is
things,
going to
but one of the things that
have
I
their
wanted,
problems.
well, one of the things I was like when I'm mentioning these things specifically is that it goes back to that whole notion about like how we will buy in to white supremacy in some shape, way,
Right.
or
Oh yeah,
form.
yeah.
Like even though like Gandhi did shine a light on the caste system and how it could be like severely oppressive to people in India, and even Dr. King took a lot of his tactics, especially his tactic of nonviolence, and used it here in America during the civil rights movement. So, there's not necessarily demonizing him as a person, it was more so demonizing the system that would even allow him to think that way.
Mm.
And that's where I'm kind of getting at specifically when we're talking about anything. Even when I was bringing up, indigenous people, five civilized tribes, like even though they specifically were under the thumb of white supremacy and their lands being taken away from them, the way that they were able to cultivate their particular tribes, or even like resolve their culture, they were also fed this narrative through white supremacy to say that, hey, if you do this, like capture slaves, own slaves,
It's
and buy our clothing, whatever, you can assimilate too and we'll leave you alone. But that wasn't the case. They didn't.
it's a
You
damn good point. It's a damn good point, and
Mhm.
it also goes to the larger point of, we talk about how a lot of these notions of patriarchy
Mhm.
and homophobia and all and racism
It's
and
not
stuff
just a notion of patriarchy; it's a notion of hierarchy.
stem from Christianity. And a lot of it does, but particularly in contemporary discourse, that Christianity has a big hangover, as does colonialism. It's a
Sure.
huge hangover even for atheists, because
Yeah.
there are an awful lot of atheists out there in this community that were raised in that system,
Sure.
raised within the context of Western European civilization,
Mhm.
and and West and European civilization itself has inherited those ways of thinking that are
Mhm.
passed on, whether within the church or within civil society.
Sure.
So, we're dealing with that kind of a hangover from ideas that are really hard to expunge from our upbringing, whether no matter who we are, if we're raised within the context of of European and colonialist notions.
Bree, I want you to go back to that point where you were saying about hierarchy, because I want you to really.
Okay, yeah,
Please.
it's what you were saying about the message that they gave to the civilized tribes about they always they want to, if you want to win somebody over, put somebody else, talk to them as if another group is beneath them.
That's
right. They still use this topic or this tactic today.
Yep.
And in the way welfare queens, that's a good one. Now
Southern strategy.
That was a message to say, hey, let's you might be poor and white, but at least you're not black.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
You may be living on a reservation, but at least you're not black. Is the same message that they want to give the native peoples in at that time. And it rolls on downhill. They sold that same message to, after they'd like Stephanie said, after the civilized tribes were all but wiped out in the area, and their Irish moved into the mountains there, and the Scottish moved into the mountains there. They told them gave them the same message. You may be poor, but at least you're not black.
Right. And matter of fact, and even to your point, matter of fact, even if you may be dirt poor, coming from Ireland, coming from Eastern European country, even as a European immigrant, we're going to give you land through the Homestead Act of 1862.
Homesteaders Act.
Yes, and we're not even going to talk about how at least about 25% of the white population in the United States today are still living off of the wealth of that one policy.
My ancestors did it. They did it. I come from welfare immigrants. Yes. My family was some welfare queens from Ireland. They were fleeing famine, of course, but refugees. But if they want to talk about, of course, there was a time where Irish people were just, I don't want to pretend like that's even the same thing, but there was a time where they didn't.
Irish wasn't black.
Yeah.
I mean, Irish wasn't exactly white when they first came here.
No, they weren't.
But that's exactly that. But they weren't black either. That's the message that they got when they came here.
You could assimilate if you're willing to just completely whitewash your entire heritage, and you can be treated like you're an actual human being.
My last name, they changed the way they spelled it to so that it could be mistaken for a like, I don't know, like a whatever the mainland UK. I don't even know what the culture is. They changed it from MAC, M-A-C, to MCC.
Oh, that's they made it WASPy.
Yeah, they anglicized
it. Yeah, that's right. That's what
so that we could fit in, so that we would have an easier time fitting in, because back then that we were middle class citizens, if you want to say, above the slaves, maybe above the Indians, but below the native people who came here, the Puritan cultures that came here before us and founded everything.
Yeah, found. What do you found? People here.
Founded the white people cities.
Right.
Founded the white people cities.
Right. Yeah, like the House of Burgess in Virginia. Okay.
Yeah.
So, so guys, we've been here almost a couple of hours. So I really want to get to like some of these star questions. And also, but first, I want to acknowledge Dan D for your super chat. Thank you so much. You guys, we are at that point where you can give super chats and we will read them on air. Yes, but Dandy, thank you so much. Also a patron of ours. Thank you. Thank ladies for a interesting discussion. We really try to bring like interesting, that's the word, topics that people would love to engage with. Got a couple of start comments specifically from Pat. Thank you, Pat. It's time to do a show on how the internet impacts, i.e. facilitates the ability of white supremacists to interact, promote, and recruit. Yes, ooh, I agree. Yeah. In many ways, the internet has mainstreamed their rhetoric. You are telling the truth. That is so true. I mean,
in
because
many ways. I mean, the
yeah.
recruitment's been almost solely online
Oh
lately.
yeah. Oh yeah, most definitely. Yeah. I mean, like when you look at 8chan and 4chan and some of these other platforms that have like in order for them to coalesce and I mean like you remember the rallying cry for January 6th was completely online. Quit playing.
Well, I mean, it gives you the ability to completely do this stochastic terrorism campaign, but also remove yourself from any of the effects.
Yeah.
That
well, let's not even kid ourselves. The whole Trump campaign and presidency was a result of freaking meme culture and fucking sorry about the language. And 4chan and 8chan culture like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're good. We're more than 5 minutes in. Yeah. Yeah, and then Pat has another one. I hate to say it, but if our country really wants to combat institutional racism, we're going to push for much greater diversity in our law enforcement and justice system. The most necessary step, in my humble opinion. Not and it's legislatures too and law enforcement, because like we have the legislatures who are making the laws. We need more diverse thinking as well, because I mean, because I see people will always say, well, I'm just going to put like utilize like diversity, and we're going to put like a Jewish person here, a Black person here, a Latina person here, a trans person here, a queer person, and then we all cool. But if they all still have the same problematic thinking when they are creating laws, we are getting nowhere. Right. So it also has to change. It has to be a change of mindset as well. I think about like your Tim Scotts of the world. This is a Black man that is a senator that's in South Carolina, had the audacity to mitigate a gall to say that racism doesn't exist in a state where there was a whole slave port and the last slave auction house was right there in Charleston. I know because I visited there because it's now a museum. So I don't understand how you could say that, sir, but okay.
Like, I mean, and it's not like it's not a pretty well gerrymandered state. Like I just, knowing the history of South Carolina and what still goes on there today, like how do you say that with a straight face?
No, they can't be. Like I think that somebody was cattle prodding him, to be honest with you. And and so like we still have lawmakers like that. And then and then if you have lawmakers like that, are still, again, like that's what I was talking about, specifically how we as a group of people still perpetuate white supremacist rhetoric. Then we have like people that was in Oklahoma in law enforcement got caught on a hot mic saying that I used to take Negroes out to Mud Creek and hang them up, but you can't do that anymore because they have more rights than we do, and the only reason why they're no longer in their positions is because they got caught and they were pushed to resign. That's the type of stuff that we're dealing with right now.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, where it's just like, with the white fragility, it's like, the narrative is we are always right. And, when we're not allowed to do what we want to do, something is being done to us. Like, for instance, I was, I don't know, I've been getting a lot of crap lately for things. And when people come at me, I come back at them. But, and then in one chat, somebody was like, oh, Maya just lays in wait, to, attack people. And I'm like, do I lay in wait to attack people, or do I respond to things that are said directly to me? But because you can't win an argument.
Or when you're in a position where you're moderating a live chat of people, and your expectation from the channel owner is that you will moderate the conversation, and then they're like, oh my gosh, Maya's just being tyrant. And
I am way nicer as a mod than I could ever be as a non-mod. I'm pretty, like, I'm a bitch. I'll say it straight out. I'm not, as a mod, I see myself as an extension of the channel owner. My obligation is to, help the channel owner do whatever it is that they want to do, and it looks different for every channel. As a viewer, don't pick an argument with me. You will lose. And don't get mad when that happens. I'll just say that. But, like, it's not my fault that you can't win an argument on your argument's merits. But, like, that's just kind of like what I'm saying. And it's not even just like me. Like, I'm not even trying to call somebody out. Like, again, go to Twitter. They do this all the time where, all of a sudden it's just like, that's just wrong. And then you start to see the goalpost shift. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't like something and I have to work it in my favor. It's like, no, you can actually just be wrong. You know, and we've all been wrong. And what I find is that people gravitate towards humility. When I was on a trans streamer's channel, I was like, and I'm misgendered. And then I'm just like, oh my God, I'm a horrible person. I'm a transphobe. Like, I can't believe you're friends with me. And people are like, Maya, you're not a transphobe. And I'm just like, yes, I am. And not that everybody needs to go that crazy with it, but, people want to see an apology and people trying to do better. They don't, like, standing your ground when you don't have merit makes you look stupid. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know what it is about our culture, but I see this almost everywhere where people feel like, and maybe it's more like what you were talking about earlier, like the misogyny or the toxic masculinity, where, you got to have this big, strong man. And I don't know, for like, where like the man mirrors God and, God's never wrong. And so for me to be seen as strong or whatever, like, I can never be wrong.
I'm made
misogyny,
in God's image.
Patriarchy.
Misogyny,
patriarchy, all of that stuff. I just wanted to South Carolina, first state of the Confederacy, Charleston Harbor, lovely place to sail, wicked tide, and Fort Sumter. It's Fort Sumter with a big flag on it. That's how you can tell where the wind's coming from.
Exactly.
Fort Sumter's pretty cool though. If you get a chance, go see it. It's they used this the last time they used some of that specific architecture in the U.S. So check it out. Maya, what do you got coming up on your channel?
Oh, I just want to, because Stephanie won't toot her own horn, but I just wanted to say she's an award-winning sailor, so she knows what she's talking about.
That's right. Yes, Stephanie is.
24 worlds, right there.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Tomorrow we have Bad Science Sunday coming up, and we're going to talk about stuff, all good stuff.
What channel are you on, Maya? Let the people know, because it's now it's time to shill everyone.
All right, at Maya Adkisson on all of the things. Nice. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube.
Spelled just like that.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. So
and Instagram.
and IG. So make sure you guys check out Maya tomorrow.
9:30 Eastern. 9:30 p.m. Eastern, yeah.
Okay. Ooh, child, if I'm actually awake.
Is the good doctor going to be joining you?
Always. He's my co-host. Stephanie, Bree, you're welcome to come. Cynthia, also, if you're awake.
That's usually when I'm putting the baby over.
I can use a good laugh. We always have a good time on it.
Yeah, Stephanie is insane. She actually knows a lot about physics. And I'm impressed. She's quite impressive, quite multifaceted. Nice. And I believe she's been wasting her talents arguing with Nazis.
Yeah. I'm done. I'm through with that.
Well, it's kind of like
punch him.
Right? What happened to that? When did we start apologizing for Nazis instead of?
Well, it's kind of like it's kind of like when I was asked by this person, like, when we were talking about a mutual channel that I've been on, and they have like a lot of like interesting people, including Black Hebrew Israelites, and they have a guy who kind of frequents there too. That's a flat earther, and I was asked, well, why don't you go onto the show and debate the flat earther person, because I already kind of like debated the Black Hebrew Israelites, but I didn't do it because I was trying to. I was actually on there to promote an event that it was the Women of Color Beyond Belief conference that was in Chicago last year. Myself and Mandyza were on that show promoting the event, and we were just talking about our personal experiences and kind of how we came to be atheist, and how it is very much so, and it's almost like we're an anomaly because there's so few Black atheists, especially Black women atheists,
especially Black women.
Yeah. So and so we were just talking about our experiences, and next thing you know, I got these different Black Hebrew Israelites coming on saying all types of stuff, and then all of a sudden I just raised up in me like, okay, debate Cynthia's coming out. I see this is what we're doing today, right? And
woman, you did not know your place.
right, yeah, all that, like, you need to know your place, you feminazi, etc., atheist, God hating person. I don't hate God. I don't believe that God exists. So how can I not hate something I don't believe exists? But that's neither here nor there. And then I was asked, like, will you debate a flat earther? And I was like, no, because 100% of the time I'm thinking this person already is an idiot.
And like, how do you talk to an idiot? Yeah, like
and
you're too stupid.
I can't do it because your position is preposterous. And so therefore I think you're an idiot. It's kind of like
some level of intelligence to keep up with the conversation.
So I can't do it. It's kind of like what did John Henry Clark say? I only debate my equals. Everyone else I teach. I was like, yeah,
I like that. I can't though. I can't do the flat earthers. I mean, it's just it's the earth is observably round.
Yeah.
Like you are like you're denying your own senses.
Right.
I don't know where to
see
start
the curvature.
There. I have no respect.
Go outside and you can see the curvature of the earth. I mean,
I just watch a lunar eclipse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stephanie, where can we find you?
I don't know. You can find me here right now. I guess that's one spot. Yeah, my YouTube channel is at Steffi Kath, which is on that little subtitle there. On Twitter, I'm at Sidra, which is a name that I used way back in the old bloggy days. So it lives. Sidra lives. Here and there. I did a live stream yesterday and a kind of an open room that turned into it was a little bit spicy, but whatever. And also I did something that I was pretty proud of, which was just talking about an Ursula K. Le Guin story that actually was used as sort of the basis for a Star Trek, whatever Star Trek series is going on right now, besides Picard.
Strange New Worlds is coming.
Strange New Worlds. It was a season 1, I think, story about anyway. About a planet that had a young child who was key to the well-being of the whole planet.
I saw that episode. Oh my gosh,
it's based on Ursula K. Well, it draws inspiration from an Ursula K. Le Guin story, which drew inspiration from a thought by William James, and it's a really good story. So I did about 45 minutes on that trope on my channel, which you should all go and subscribe to and like and all of that other good stuff. I'm almost up to 100 subscribers, and I haven't really started. The channel's been around forever, but I've only just started putting content up, and it's kind of fun. So I do that, and I don't know what the next gig is, but I pop up here and there.
Everybody subscribe to Stephanie's channel. And everyone go to her link tree and therefore you can follow all the stuffy stuff that's there.
All that stuff.
All that stuff. As a matter of fact, can we highlight specifically Adkisson's comment, because it does have Stephanie's link tree there. Thank you. So everyone go here, okay, and go, and then that way you can do all the things and subscribe to all the things, okay. And then my lovely co-host, Bumble, you must tell us where we can find you.
At that thing, what was it over here? Yeah, this thing beside my name. If you put that into just about any social media, that's me. Pretty much all of them. YouTube, Twitter. Yeah, that's how you find me. I'm Hivesci, Hivesci. If it's somebody else, let me know so I can see if I can get it from them. Because I want to have all of the Hivesci everywhere. Instagram. Yeah, so that's where you can find me. Mostly I'm on YouTube. I've started doing a little bit of stuff on TikTok lately, but I'm not real into it, so there's not a lot there, but maybe growing. But yeah, I do a show every Saturday morning, so it was this morning. You missed it. Sorry. Trying again next week.
Well, I mean, you can always go back and watch it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you can watch it.
No, Bree's show is the best way to wake up on a Saturday morning.
Bree, let's see the bug of the day.
Oh, the bug of the day. I have little ghost mantises actually on my microphone stand right now. Come here, guys. Got two of them. They've been with us the whole time secretly. Just hanging out.
Nice.
Yeah, because they're still babies.
Aww.
Still babies. These are ghost mantises. The other one's kind of orangey color, but he's down in here, so I don't know if he's gonna let me grab him or not. Nope. He's got himself wedged down in there. I'm not gonna make him come out, but those are my little Mike Mantis buddies who have been hanging out with me today.
Oh, nice. Mm-hmm. Well, welcome to the stream, Ghost Mantises, and thank you for hanging out with us today. Guys, I have a link tree to everything that I do is at Cam Glamming. So, and I'm going to be starting my speaker circuit starting in May, actually. So I'll be at Better. I just got confirmed at the Student Secular Alliance. I'll be doing a talk there about podcasting. And also I'll be at Houston Oasis actually on the same day on June the 18th. I also will be on a panel and tabling for Black non-believers at the Motor City Black Asia Comic-Con and Comic-Con and MangaCon on between June the 2nd and 3rd. Better is actually the first weekend of August, so make sure you guys go to jesusisamyth.com in order for you to find out more about that and grab your tickets. It'll be in a suburb of Fort Wayne, Indiana, actually this year. And I'm also going to be a speaker on Black Non-Believers CCon. So if you like cruising and you also want to get some information, please join us. This year we are going to Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, and St. Thomas. I am super excited.
Beautiful Charlotte Amalia.
Yes. So please, if you into all that stuff, go ahead and join us. And also still, and if you're in the Chicago area and you want to join us, Black Non-Believers meetup groups, please join our meetup groups. I try to do really cool meetups every month. Like this month we did our secular week of action and was at the diabetes awareness fair in the Belmont Cragen area, which is an area in Chicago specifically that has a lot of immigrant populations, mostly Latin. But the cool thing about that area is that it's not just like one Latin American group. as far as like, country represented. You have like Central America, you have South America, a lot of Peruvians, a lot of people from Honduras, a lot of people, and Puerto Rico, Mexico, and those areas as well. So it was really cool to be out there, even though we were in the rain. And guys, I came in soaked. Everything was soaked, including my hair is frizzier than normal because I was under those tents, and you know how like those tents can like gather the water, and then they just would dump right on me. And I'll say, yeah, that was great. I'm awake now. So
oh man.
but no, it was a lot of fun. And of course, like it's always cool to volunteer and give back. So yeah. So yeah, if you want to Skeptic Haven highlight my link tree there, I try to make sure that people can go there. Also follow my blog, freedmanhealthandwellness.com. It's also in there as well. I get, you guys, I don't know about you all, but like there's like so many irons in the fire that like I neglect my writing. The last thing that I wrote was my my piece on Martin Luther King and his contributions to not only history in America but also socialism, because I just found out that he was a socialist. So
how did you not know that?
I didn't.
What the hell?
Wow.
I didn't learn he was a socialist until 2022.
No kidding.
No, did not know. Did not know.
Yeah, like hardcore. Like he puts some progressives today to shame.
Yeah, I even did like a short for the nonprofits about even like his embracing free thinking.
Yeah, no, but he really got it. I mean, people like to showcase his racial like his thoughts on racial inequality, but he understood that it was economic disparity, and he had like a plan, like actual action plan, like this is what we need. Like
yeah,
it wasn't just like nice rhetoric. Like
no,
he knew like, okay, you guys need legislation, here you go. Like he was on it.
A great place to actually learn about Martin Luther King's plan is in Where Do We Go From Here, From Chaos to Community. It's a great book. It's one of the last books that he wrote before he was assassinated. He also did a speech, Where Do We Go From Here, where he talked about like some of the work that they were doing in different parts of the country, including Chicago, which was one of the places that they headquartered Operation Breadbasket. He did that a lot when he was living in the Chicago West Side. So yeah, I knew all that other stuff, but that whole socialism thing went right over my head. So anyway, but I got it back now.
History is whitewashed. We've been talking about it all day.
All day, every day. So guys, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming on the show today. And I'm just going to read this because it's up in front of me. Don't forget to check out our other shows on Skeptic Haven. Secular Soapbox on Wednesdays. The Bible Says What? The Sunny Spot. The Global Atheists and Women Atheists Unload. And Let's Talk. Let's Talk is on every Sunday. That is actually a call-in show. So please, guys, check it out. Also, make sure that you guys like this particular stream and all of our streams and all of our shows. Like and subscribe to our channel. Share it with your people. Share it with your family, your friends, your non-friends, even the people who that do dog whistling. You want them to tell them stop doing that shit. Share this stuff, and and then make sure you all support the channel. Again, you can support the channel by doing super chats, and you become a patron at patreon.com/Skeptic Haven. And again, we want to thank our patrons. I know that like Bree already read them out earlier, but I'm gonna make Bree read them again.
Yeah, I'm all about reading those patrons again. We got Mr. Eric Ozols. I think I'm saying that right. It's Ozols, maybe. Tara S., Rion, Deneen Murphy, Dan D., Michael Wiseman, Kathy Cotton, Cindy Plaza, Sunny Shell, Aaron Coalson, and Phil Calderone. Thank you so much for your support that you give to Skeptic Haven and make these shows possible.
Yes, that's actually Phil Calderone. But yes, we
Calderone.
Calderone. Calderone. It's like call Tyrone, but Calderone instead.
Fill the cauldron.
There you go. We're going to make a witch's brew after this, guys. So again, guys, thank you so much. And also the participation in the chat. It was very much so wonderful. And thank you guys again for doing that. We always love our participation in the super chat because it really does help our conversations go along, even with the trolls. So thank you again, Miss Bree, Miss Maya, Miss Stephanie. Thank you for the crew in the background. We got Captain Humanist and also Wes. That's our crew for Skeptic Haven for today. Thank you guys so much for actually making this show possible, and everybody who actually works in the background for Skeptic Haven to keep us up and running. Thank you so much. And with that being said, thank you for tuning in, and you have a great rest of your Saturday.
Bye.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that, spitting slow, spitting fast. I could roast, I could gas, think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past and the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness.